Alright, welcome to Mr. Nelson's YouTube videos. Today in class we're talking about ratios. And we're talking about rates. Okay, ratios and rates are just the same thing. But before we get into what we need to learn today, meaning students will be able to write a ratio 3 ways, understand ratios compare to like or unlike things, quantitative and qualitative, we need to make sure that we have gone over the warm-up. So, in today's warm-up, I asked you to write 3/5 as a decimal. 3/5 as a decimal is 0.6 or 6/10. Second one, I asked you to multiply 3.5 times 0.4. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 3 is 12, plus the 2 is 14. 1 decimal, 2 decimal places. I move it 2 times because of how many decimal places I have, so 1.4 or 1 4/10. And the very last one, something that we just went over, -5 minus 8, add the opposite. So -5 stays the same, change it to addition. The opposite of 8 is -8. Same sign, add, keep the sign. Okay, so 5 plus 8 is 13. And we keep the sign of negative. And that's your answer. Alright, so those are your 3 from the warm-up. Now let's get into what we're actually going to do today. Today we're talking about ratios. There are 3 ways you can write a ratio. You can write it as a fraction, like that. That is technically a ratio. You can write it in the clock form, which is with the little dots, 1 to 3. Or you can write it in the word form, 1 to 3. Okay, so those are the 3 ways you can write it. Again, there are 3 ways you can write it. You've got it as a fraction. That is a ratio. It's also a rate if you have labels. You also have it in the words form with words, 1 to 2, and the clock form with the nice little doot there. So 1 to 2 on each cases. Remember, there are 3 ways you can write a ratio. Okay? Ratios are used to compare to like or unlike things. So we're going to look at things that we can have alike or what we can have unlike. Okay? All right, things that we can have alike or unlike. Here are 2 things that are not alike. Okay? We've got cats, we've got dogs. We're going to label our ratio. It says to write a ratio dogs to cats. So you want dogs to cats. You want dogs to cats. You want dogs to cats. So 2 dogs for 3 cats. 2 dogs for 3 cats. 2 dogs for 3 cats. The 3 different ways you can write it. Okay? Remember, in your notes, you should have 3 ways to write a ratio. In your notes, you should write down these 3 ways to write a ratio. Okay? We just did 3 ways to write this ratio of dogs to cats when we're comparing dogs to cats. Now, we've got 15 miles in 3 minutes. Okay? Write this as a ratio of minutes to miles. So we've got minutes to miles. So we're going to write it like that. We're going to write it like this. And we're going to write it like this. So there are 3 ways. We've got minutes to miles. 3 minutes for 15 miles, which is ridiculously fast. 3 minutes for 15 miles. 3 to 15. And there are your 3 ways you can write it. Okay? The other thing we need to look at is we need to look at unit rate. Unit rate is very helpful in math. Unit rate tells you if you have a better buy because you can find out how much it is per 1 unit, meaning if it's a bigger price per 1 unit, it's not a better buy. If it's a smaller price per 1 unit, then you have a better buy. All right, so let's look at C here. We're going to look at pace, a rate of distance compared to how long it takes you to get there. So we've got 3 miles in 30 minutes. Okay, that's not a unit rate. That's 3 miles, not 1 mile. We're trying to find it for 1 mile. Okay. Well, if I wanted to go from 3 to 1, I would have to divide by 3. So I need to go from 30 to I don't know how many minutes it'll take. Well, if I divide the top by 3, I can divide the bottom by 3. So divide 30 by 3 and you get 10. So that gives you 1 mile in 10 minutes. Okay? All right, so just like I said, here is our ratio, or our rate, how fast we're going. And if we wanted to find out how fast I could go in how fast I could make a mile in, I would need to make sure that I label, and I keep miles on top. As you can see here, I'm trying to find out how fast I can do 1 mile, and I have minutes on the bottom. And remember how I said you divide? Well, to get to 1, I had to divide by 3. So to get this one, I have to do whatever I did on the top, I need to do on the bottom. Divide by 3, and you get 10. Make sure you label. That's probably the most important thing, is to label. So you've got miles per minute, unit rate. This is your unit rate. 1 mile in 10 minutes. Okay? Unit rate is for 1. Unit rate is for 1. Unit rate. You can use unit rate to find out how fast you could do 8 miles or 10 miles if you kept the same rate. So if you kept the same speed, how fast could you do it in 8 miles in? Okay? So what we're going to look at is we're going to use the unit rate that we just found, 1 mile in 10 minutes, to find out how long it would take us to do 8 miles. And what we're going to do, how we found unit rate, we divided, right? So how we found unit rate, we divided to go down to 1 mile. But when we're trying to use unit rate, we're going to multiply. How did I go from 1 to 8? Well, I multiplied by 8. So how am I going to go from 10 to this unknown? I'm going to multiply by 8. Now, 8 times 10 is 80. So, if you use unit rate, you can use it, and you can find out how many miles you can do, or how many minutes it will take you to do this. Okay? So I can do 8 miles in 80 minutes, which is 1 hour and 20 minutes. If you wanted to convert it to hours and minutes. All right, so to find unit rate, you're basically just finding an equivalent fraction. Okay, so you're finding an equal fraction. 1/10 is the simplified version of 3/30. You're just finding equal fractions. Well, 8/80, if you simplified it, would be 1/10. But we're trying to find out things, rates, ratios, different kinds of ratios, but all they are equivalent fractions. So that's all you're doing. You're finding equivalent fractions. That's it. So we've looked at rates, we've looked at ratios. Unit rate is very important. It's for 1. And when you use unit rate to find multiples of it, say you wanted to find 8 of them or 6 of them or 15 of them, you can use unit rate by just multiplying your unit rate by however many you're trying to find. So if I was trying to find 25 miles, how long it would take me to do 25 miles, I would set up my unit rate. And instead of 8 miles here, I would have 25. All right. Make sure you've taken some notes over unit rate. To find unit rate, you're going to need to divide. So make sure you have this in your notes. This slide needs to be in your notes. So does this slide needs to be in your notes. Okay? Unit rate, if you use unit rate, you multiply. Okay? And remember, unit rate is for one. You're finding it for 1 unit. That's why it was 1 mile. All right? From here, you can do all of your work today. Make sure that you read things in the work today because it does give you examples of things. Do the best that you can. I will be back on Thursday. Thank you, guys.